Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine and today we will be reacting to another Piers Morgan debate panel with some very insufferable attendees. So let's get into it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do everything you have to do to boost this video, and let's go.
A video of President Joe Biden wandering listlessly at the G7 summit in Italy made global headlines last week. It appears to show a confused commander-in-chief drifting aimlessly away from world leaders until Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, retrieves him. Liberal media outlets scream misinformation as their longer clip, taken from a different angle, shows him giving a thumbs up to three parachutists who are taking part in the ceremony. On that, at least, they might have a point. But they're also missing the real point. This wasn't Joe Biden's first offence of this kind. He attended a fundraiser in Los Angeles this weekend with former President Obama and celebrities like Jimmy Kimmel. This is how it ended. It looks pretty clear that the president has kind of frozen.
Listen, this is elder abuse at this point. That's all I'm gonna say.
Doesn't seem to know where he is or what he's doing. His predecessor as the last Democrat president, Barack Obama, has to lead him off stage by the arm, as if he's taking him home for tea in a nursing home. And many think that's where he should now belong, rather than the White House. There is no disinformation or selective editing about.
I mean, listen, even if Joe Biden steps down, it would be Kamala Harris. And I hate to say it, Kamala Harris is very disliked. Like, she's not a popular person or a popular candidate. A lot of people who are even Democrat do not agree with a lot of the things that she's done in the past and or continues to do in the present. So I don't really know what the Democrats would plan to do, even if Joe Biden does step down, because his other option is widely unpopular. And also, I genuinely do not think our country is in a place to where we would elect a black woman as president. I hate to say it, but if no one's going to say it, I will. I think this country is still incredibly racist, and I think a lot of people would not want to see a black woman be president. We're not even in a place to elect a woman for president, period. I would even go that far because we are 100% a misogynist country. Now, that being said, the last woman candidate that we had that actually made up the ranks was Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton is also a very unlikable person. So I don't think we've really had a likable woman move up the ranks to the point where we even would have the proper data for it. But I just think we're still in a very misogynistic state where we just would not be able to elect a woman president. You know, way worse for a black woman president. I just don't think we're there, to be honest.
About that last clip, there's no disinformation or selective editing in the scores of videos we see of Biden's physical and apparent cognitive disintegration every week. Barely a day passes by without a fresh clip of him slurring himself into an inaudible cul-de-sac, or forgetting how to exit a stage, or just falling over. After watching that clip, I posted on X what I suspect everyone who watched it was thinking. Embarrassing. The Democrats can't let this go on, surely. Within a few hours, more than 8 million people had viewed the post, and many thousands had liked, responded, or commented on it. The vast majority shared my honestly held view that Joe Biden is sadly too physically and mentally unfit to function at the extremely high level required to be leader of not just the United States, but also leader of the free world. When the last Democrat to occupy the White House has to literally grab the current one because he notices he's having another senior moment and appears to be paralyzed on stage, there has to be a wake-up call that everyone in the party should urgently heed before it's too late, doesn't it? Well, the hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman, who is a Democrat but now says he won't vote for Biden and may well vote for Trump in 2024, hit the nail on the head with a response directly to me. Look at what is going on in the world, he wrote on X in reply to my post. The perception of weak leadership in the United States has led to global chaos. The reality of weak leadership is a long-term, serious and continued threat to our country. The Democratic Party is destroying itself by advancing Biden for a second term.
I don't know if I would say the perception of weak leadership is what has led the United States to global chaos. I think what is currently going on in the Middle East was gonna happen regardless, to be completely honest. Like, this has been a buildup of many decades of different types of histories and massacres accumulating to what's happened today. Ukraine and Russia, I think, would have happened regardless. I don't really think it's fair to say that what's happening today is because of weak leadership. I think it's because of the way America and Western countries move and meddle within other countries' sovereignties. I think that's the issue. I think that's why we're at the point that we're at now. And, you know, as much as I don't like Joe Biden, I think it's fair to say that a lot of the shit that Trump did, which was not good, fell on Joe Biden and his administration's lap. I think that's fair to say. But do I think he's fully, completely, 100% there? Honestly, I think everyone is lying to themselves if they say yes at this point. And that's okay. You start deteriorating when you get older. That's fine. That's how human nature is supposed to be. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with, you know, freezing or forgetting where you're at or not engaging fully when you're that fucking old, right? But when we're talking about, okay, how is Joe Biden showing up? How is he moving? If he's not on top of it and he's not reacting, he's not responding on top of it, like that could very much turn into a fucking shit show overnight. So I don't know. I don't think this statement necessarily is fair, but I do think he inherited a lot of Trump's fuck ups. But at the same time, like, call a spade a spade. He's old as fuck. Like, he needs to retire.
This is the Emperor's New Clothes in real life. But it's not a children's book or a joke. The world is at great risk, and a Biden second term is a grave threat to global security and prosperity. Well, I couldn't agree more. Biden is supposed to be America's commander-in-chief at what is a very dangerous time for the world. But frankly, I wouldn't trust him now to order a restaurant meal, let alone a military strike. So why is he still running for office? Let's not forget that 2 incumbent Democrat presidents since World War II have both stood down before.
Trump is more of a threat, to be real. I think Trump is more of a threat domestically. When it comes to internationally, I don't think any president would move differently. They are very pro-Israel. They're all bought out by AIPAC. I don't think internationally it would make a lot of differences. I think domestically, Trump versus Biden would be very different. I think that's where the polls, you know, the outcome would be different, where Trump would instate a lot of dictatorship / conservative values on everyone. But internationally, I don't really think it's going to make a difference. So I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree with that statement.
They were due to run again, doing what was right for their party and what was right for the country. Well, another billionaire, Mark Cuban, took us both to task. He said we're both so consumed with pandering to our Twitter followers that we've lost all objectivity, adding in capital letters that both candidates are old, very old. He's right. But aging is relative. Only one of the candidates repeatedly forgets where he is.
I don't like Mark Cuban, but I agree with that. We need age limits in politics, and I think that's a bipartisan agreement. I think people on both sides agree with that. It's just very hard to implement anything like that because old people run everything. But I don't think that's a very controversial thing to say where it's like, oh, both candidates are old, we need younger candidates.
Struggles to walk up the stairs or keeps falling over. Democrats love to go on about cultist Trump supporters wearing MAGA-coloured glasses. Well, I'm not MAGA. Even Donald Trump knows that. It may be time that they admitted their president is now unfit to serve and began a serious conversation about how America and the world should deal with that. Well, joining me now to debate this are 3 ferocious commentators from the political right, left and centre. Cenk Uygur, the founder and host of Young Turks, host of Tomi Lahren is Fearless on Outkick, Tomi Lahren, and the commentator and author of the upcoming book Shameless, Brian Tyler Cohen. Welcome to all 3 of you. Tomi, let me start with you. I watched that clip with Obama and Biden on stage, and I thought that was a really sad moment. You can spin it any way you like, but Obama noticed Biden wasn't really moving and didn't seem now to be quite aware where he was, and literally grabbed his arm and steered him away off stage. It was just a sobering thing to watch. What did you make of it?
Well, this amounts to elder abuse at this point, in my opinion, and shame on Jill Biden for not stepping in when her husband is clearly failing. But I would also say this, something that
Bro, there could have been so many better ways she could have started this all out. It's not elder abuse if the man himself wants to do the work, okay? And also, what the hell is his wife gonna do? force him to do something he doesn't want to do? What are you even saying? She could have literally used so many better talking points.
Former President Barack Obama has that current President Joe Biden doesn't have is he does have his mental acuity and faculties. And Barack Obama knows that the optics of him grabbing Joe's arm probably wouldn't be great, but he also understands that the alternative would be to let Joe stand there and freeze. So to me, it's more telling when you look at former President Obama and his actions than looking at Joe Biden. So for all of the Democrat influencers, many of whom are paid by Biden PACs, who want to say that that video was somehow misinformation or disinformation, well, it's clear as day what we saw in that clip. You can't dispute it. And Barack Obama grabbing his arm, I think even further proves that point, that Joe Biden froze, or he was about to freeze, or he was about to maybe do something even more embarrassing, and the former president had to intervene, even though that in and of itself looked bad. There's no way to spin this, guys.
Well, let's see if there is a way to spin it. Brian Tyler Cohen. I mean, look, I'm not Mag.
Oh, God. When I say I don't like anyone on this panel, like, I'm not joking. I'm, like, dreading hearing all of their responses right now.
I'm not Republican. I'm not right wing. I'm a kind of old-fashioned liberal of the Bill Maher variety, who also has been expressing his concern about what is happening with Joe Biden. So
Bill Maher is a conservative, okay? Like, we all just have to collectively agree that Bill Maher, at best, on a good day, is a Dem conservative, okay? Like, we gotta stop painting Bill Maher as some sort of a fucking liberal king, okay? That man is not a liberal. He's not even left-leaning on a good day. Also, he's wildly Islamophobic as hell.
Dismiss it all when people point out what's going on with Biden as just a MAGA plot is demonstrably untrue.
Piers, thank you for having me, first of all. Second of all, I was literally in the room. I was there. I was at that event at the Peacock Theater at LA Live. Joe Biden was doing what he always does, which is just waving at the crowd. He has a long history of working rope lines ad nauseum. During the State of the Union, he was in that room talking to people so long that the C-SPAN cameras literally turned off. And that's what he was doing on that stage. He was just waving at people who were waving back at him, to the point where Barack Obama came around and just put his arm around Joe, his own vice president, and they walked off stage together, probably because Barack Obama had less of an interest in staying and waving at the crowd as long as Joe Biden did. But this is who Joe Biden is.
Am I tripping? Joe Biden was not waving in that crowd. Joe Biden was staring at that crowd. He wasn't waving. If you're going to make an argument, at least say something factual. Like, please, I'm begging you. He was not waving when Obama grabbed him. That's not true.
With that said, I understand why people like Tomi Lahren and the right more broadly have a vested interest in perpetuating this idea that Joe Biden is in the throes of cognitive decline.
Yeah, but I don't have one, Brian. I don't have that vested interest. In fact, I've only ever had one. I have one conversation with Joe Biden in my life. After Beau Biden died in 2015, I wrote a column saying he was a fantastic guy, used to come on my show a lot at CNN, and how sad it was, and that America may have lost, without even knowing it, someone who could have been one of the great presidents of the country. I really felt Beau was on a fast track to the top, but it was a tragedy. And I had an amazing call from Joe Biden out of the blue. But I can tell you two things. In that conversation, he was incredibly open and honest with me about it all. It went on for about 15 minutes. But he was also lucid. He was eloquent. He was articulate, and it was a perfectly normal conversation. It bore no relation to what Joe Biden now talks like or acts like when I see him in public. And I would go back even further, and I would say this is more unsettling, which is in 1986, there's a clip on YouTube where Joe Biden's a senator, and he gives an absolutely ferocious onslaught against apartheid in South Africa in a Senate hearing. And it was all televised. And if you compare that man to what we now see and hear, there is literally no comparison. It is clear evidence before you that this fast-talking, eloquent, loquacious, fiercely intelligent senator from 86 is now a shadow of that man. And I don't say that gleefully. Like I say it sadly, but it's obvious.
Piers, everybody ages. Joe Biden has obviously aged.
But we're not all president of the United States, are we?
Is he as fast as he used to be? Of course not. But here's what I would offer in rebuttal to that is we're sitting here wondering if Joe Biden has the ability to do the job that he is literally doing right now and doing more effectively than any president in our lifetime.
Why is his poll rating so terrible then?
Pierce, is he too old to have added 15 million jobs to the economy? Is he
said, why is he polling so terribly then? This is such a shit show.
too old to have reached our stock market to a record high? Is he too old to have brought inflation down to its target 3%? Is he too old to have brought wages up to exceed inflation? Is he too old to have signed the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, the gun safety bill? All of these things, he is this old.
If he's so great, why is his approval rating at a record low? Why is he now losing in most polls in almost all the swing states? And why are alarm bells? Well, I'd say 1/3 thing. Why are 2/3 of Democrats also of the belief he's too old to carry on with the job? And when you put all that together, why do you want him to run? It might be the only way you lose.
Respectfully, Piers, I would argue that the reason that this is such a top of mind issue is because we have media like this right now, like Fox News in the United States, like Newsmax, like OAN,
but I'm not
perpetuating this idea relentlessly.
I'm not right wing, Brian. That's your problem. The Achilles heel is I'm literally not conservative. Everybody knows that. So you can say shows like this, but I'm literally
we're having this conversation.
I'm not of the right,
Piers,
so it doesn't work.
Pierce, we're having this conversation, and this conversation is that drum is beat relentlessly in the United States because it's used as a distraction to not talk about the accomplishments.
All right, let me go to Cenk. You've been waiting patiently.
Okay. Here's the issue with Brian Tyler Cohen, right? He came onto this debate panel with a bunch of facts about what Joe Biden has accomplished within the past 4 years. But I think the point that Piers is making, no one's refuting the fact that Joe Biden has done all of that work. That's not the issue here. The issue is that is he competent to continue to lead the country for the next 4 years, given all of the clips that we're seeing of him looking very obviously not very competent. That's the only argument here. No one is asking you to put out Wikipedia talking points about what Joe Biden has done or what Joe Biden has not done. The question, the crux of the argument here is you saw that clip of him. The voting polls are really bad. Why do you think that is? And why are the voting polls so bad? Because he promised the American people a bunch of shit that he did not follow through with. He promised a bunch of immigration reform, did not follow through. He promised no more wars in the Middle East, did not follow through. He promised student loan debt relief, did not follow through, right? He did do little things here and there. He did give us little apples, little bites here and there. Oh, we're leaving student loan debt for 100,000 people. 200,000 people here. But that does not encompass the most of America. So if you're going to come onto a show like Piers and you're going to debate in favor of Joe Biden, that's fine. If that's your prerogative, that's fine. But spewing out a bunch of facts that you can find on Wikipedia is not going to take you anywhere. And one of my biggest gripes with Democrats is that they genuinely do not even acknowledge what's happening in the Middle East. They don't acknowledge what's happening in the Middle East. They don't acknowledge that no immigration reform has taken place. They don't really acknowledge that student loan debt has not been recused the way that Joe Biden has promised that it would be recused. They pretend that it does not exist. Thank you, VCC TV. They pretend that it does not exist. And so long as you continuously pretend that these issues don't exist, you're not going to win any argument.
Piers, I would...
Yeah, Tomi, quickly, yeah.
Piers, I would just want to interject real quickly because I have to say this. Brian, there is nothing I would love more than for the Democrats to stick with Joe Biden as their nominee. I have no dog in this fight. I hope you guys run Joe because I think he's the easiest candidate to beat. So when you say, oh, it's us that are trying to make it seem like he's old. No, if you leave the guy in, it's much easier for my guy to beat him, okay? I think what the writing on the wall is you're going to swap him out. You being the Democrat Party are going to swap him out. I'm far more concerned about a different Democrat being the nominee against Donald Trump. I hope that Joe Biden is your nominee. So any dog that you think I have in this fight of beating the drum that he's old, no, Brian, I just have eyes and ears and I am lucid enough to understand what I'm seeing. I just wanted to make that point.
Okay. Cenk, I mean, I think you and we've talked about this before. This has to be a concern, doesn't it, for America?
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually very depressing on a number of fronts, including that my side, the Democrats, have now become like MAGA. Sorry, Brian, I love you. I think you're a great guy, super smart. You lay out your case as well as anybody can lay it out. But we do all have eyes and ears, and the Democrats are starting to look like MAGA, denying that, that MAGA says, oh, Trump won the election in 2020. You have to be a lunatic to believe that. But if you think that Joe Biden is a secret dynamo behind the scenes, as the Democrats claim, you got to be borderline lunatic to believe that. No, the guy is in terrible, terrible shape. And if he has dementia, they get more stubborn. And so what if he digs in and he's like, I don't care. And his mind is actually affected by the ailments that we're seeing with our own eyes. So the Democrats have become so authoritarian that they're like, oh my God, what if Bernie Sanders wins? What if a progressive wins?
You really have a nightmare blunt rotation when Cenk is the only one making sense.
Let's all bow our head to the Mad King. And that's what he is at this point. So we have two Mad Kings running. One's a moron to begin with. Donald Trump's one of the dumbest people who's ever been in political office. And now his brain is melting too. He's saying, oh, you do look at Joe Biden, he has dementia. My doctor, Ronnie Johnson, he told me it's Ronnie Jackson. Idiot.
Yeah,
so
but Cenk,
we have two blithering morons
Cenk, on
and
that
people
point.
that are affected by mental ailments running for office.
But Cenk, here's
it's
the
a
difference.
deeply embarrassing moment for America.
Here's the difference. I've watched a lot of Trump recently. He rang me a couple of months ago. We had a long chat. And he sounded completely normal. Exactly the same as he sounded when I did Celebrity Apprentice back in 2008. Honestly, he could have been exactly the same guy. Trump's never had a drink, never had a cigarette, never had a drug. For all that people think of him, he's still basically the same guy.
Okay, how do you know Trump has never had a drink or a drug or a cigarette? You're telling me Trump has never even dabbled in drugs? How would you know that? You're telling me Trump has never done a little bit of coke or something? Come on, bro. He's definitely done something.
He's always been. Now, he free rolls.
I don't think so.
Well, hang on. Well, he free rolls in the way he speaks. And you can go back and watch him. I used to watch him over the boardroom on Apprentice night after night. And he'd say lots of stuff, and some of it wouldn't stack up to a fact check, and some of it didn't sound quite right. But I would say there's been no cognitive decline in Trump, that he's always been basically the same kind of guy. He's a little bit older, but when you think he's only 3 years younger than Biden, my God, I mean, the difference between the two of them. And as I thought Bill Ackman, the very good point he made, Warren Buffett's in his 90s. And he doesn't sound anything like the way Joe Biden does. It's not about his age. It's about his mental acuity. And I just think, I tell you when the chickens come home to roost for everybody trying to defend this or trying to make some equivalence with Trump. June the 27th, these two guys are going to get on a stage in a live television debate that will break all records, I think, for ratings, probably around the world. And you know what's going to happen? Over 90 minutes, however long it is, Donald Trump is going to take Joe Biden to pieces, and it's going to be utterly, utterly humiliating for the president because he has been protected.
I don't know. I think when they need Biden to be on top of it, he's on top of it. Although I do think the most recent videos that have been getting circulated are pretty problematic. Now, the White House did come out and say that those were deep fakes or they just weren't real. I think I saw that on Twitter. I can't really, don't mark me on it. I could be wrong. But I don't really know how that debate is going to go, honestly. And am I worried about it? Yeah, 100% I am. Not only am I worried about that, but you got someone that has multiple convicted felonies, he's a convicted felon. He just got convicted of 30 felony charges or whatever. So you have a convicted felon and a man who needs to go to retirement at best, trying to run this country when we are at a critical state, not just nationally, but globally as well. So yeah, no, this is not good. It's not good at all.
So carefully in his term of office from this kind of thing. And when he gets exposed, honestly, Cenk, I think it's going to be utterly humiliating and Trump will destroy it.
Well, Piers, there's a reason why the debate is historically early. The debates are never before the convention. I think the Democrats put the debate before the convention so they'll have one last moment to try to talk Joe Biden out of this race. Because I disagree with you slightly on Trump. I think he's always had the lowest IQ of any human being that's ever been in public. But I think he's lost a couple of points. So he went from like a 20 to a 15. He's way, way below Biden. But I get it. He looks energetic. Biden looks like, come on, guys. The emperor has no clothes. They hate me for telling people that the emperor has no clothes, but my job is in news. We all can see how incredibly old he is. So my point is, for God's sake, pull him. If you don't pull him, we're going to lose to Trump. Why do you want to lose to Trump? Why do you want to give up 10 points? Hate me all you want. And every Democrat says it's my fault. It's people, oh, no, you shouldn't tell people reality. They already see it. You've got to pull him if you want to beat Trump. If you don't want to pull Joe Biden, you're saying, I don't mind losing to Trump. I don't mind losing democracy. All the things that I said about Trump, I don't actually mean it. I don't think it's a big deal if he wins. That's why I'm running this guy.
Listen, let's put Trump and Biden aside, okay? Let's just imagine that Trump and Biden are not a part of this conversation. Right now, with the current way that the pollings are coming out, which are really bad within swing states, he's polling really phenomenally low, lower than almost any other president that has ever been a part of this presidential race. Like, he's doing pretty bad. Joe Biden's doing bad. That's not a secret. But if you're any person that works in news or does political analysis or just follows news just because you're interested in it and you just like to read news, you look at the polls, you look at the candidates that they're putting in front of you, and you think, okay, if the Democrats want to win, it's in their favor, because Gen Z tends to lean heavily Democrat. People of color tend to lean heavily Democrat. They've had a huge voter turnout within the past 2 years, within the past 4 years. So yeah, the cards are in Democrat favors. But given how terrible everything has been going down, they need to put someone else in front. But the issue is that the person next in line is Kamala Harris. And respectfully, I don't think Kamala Harris would ever win a presidential race. I don't even think a woman would win the presidential race, period. I don't think people would vote for Kamala Harris. I think she would actually do far worse in the polling than Biden is doing, to be quite honest with you. People don't like her. They don't like her politics. They don't like her ideology. They don't like her track record. I don't like her because I think she's an AIPAC shill, right? Like, there's so many different reasons to not like Kamala Harris. There's a plethora of them, actually. But if you are objectively looking at this as a person that follows news, likes to, take in all these things, like, yeah, if you are genuinely looking at me and you're saying Joe Biden is the best, Joe Biden is competent, Joe Biden has done this, that, and the third, he's great, and you're not acknowledging all of the issues that have come with Joe Biden's presidency, yeah, you're kind of being culty. It's giving cult. Okay, like, this is my gripe with politics. Like, I can't deal with extremists on either sides of the aisle. Brian Tyler Cohen is an extremist liberal. I can't deal with that. Donald Trump is an extremist Republican conservative. I don't like to deal with that either. Like, extremism on any side is not good. It's not healthy. You're going to turn people off of your viewpoints. And I think that's the issue. I think Tomi and Brian are both extremists in their own ways, right? And I don't want either of these people trying to tell me what I should do. Cenk, as much as I think he's a bit of a loser, I think he has the best takes right now, because he's like, yeah, you know what? It's not looking good for him. And I don't think you're being honest if you don't admit that. And I think that's fair to say. Like, he's the only one that's making some sense in this panel.
This guy who cannot move or speak. It's absolute madness.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come to Tomi in a moment, but I want to just come to Brian on one point, which is, like I said, there have been two incumbent Democrat presidents since the war who both gave up. They both resigned before the next election. Lyndon Johnson was one and Harry S. Truman was the other. Did it for slightly different reasons, but the bottom line was that they didn't want to go through with it, and they were persuaded by grandees in the party on both cases that this was the right thing to do for the party and for the country. Why is no one having that conversation with Joe Biden? I mean, you put up a good defense, but when you have someone like Cenk, who is a Democrat, who's at his absolute wit's end, because he sees through all this stuff. It's just smoke and mirrors. We can all see what we see with our own eyes. Biden can barely move. He just shuffles now. I don't understand most of what comes out of his mouth. It is incredibly sad. So my question is, why is no one at least having that conversation in the party? And secondly, if he does get completely torpedoed at the debate, which I think is highly likely, then who would you also like to see potentially being considered to replace him, hypothetically, if it comes to it?
I think the reason that he's not being replaced is because in moment after moment, whether it's any of these elections, he is defying the odds. In 2022, in the midterms, Democrats won everybody counted Joe out, and he won. This happened as early as the 2020 election itself. I mean, this has been a recurring theme where Joe Biden has consistently defied the odds. And that was on the backdrop.
You could have literally put a cockroach to run for Democrats in 2020, and the cockroach would have won against Trump. I need y'all to understand this. It doesn't matter if you would have taken a random child and you would have said, this is the person that's running against Trump. That person would have won because everyone wanted Trump to get the fuck out. Okay? So the 2020 election results, that same energy, that same backing, creators like myself making content for Biden for free, it's not there. It's not there, babes. And you're being willfully stupid if you don't acknowledge that. Like, you know what? Brian Tyler Cohen has been in politics for long enough. He's been a commentator for long enough. I genuinely don't think he's stupid. I just think he is being very tunnel visioned on purpose. And I think it's honestly going to hurt the Democrat Party. I think it will.
Of everybody, from Tomi to Cenk, I can't actually say that. I don't know whether Cenk was writing Joe Biden off back in 2020, but writing him off in terms of in terms of him not being able to win, in terms of him not being able to push forward his agenda, and he's done it successfully. I mean, for all of the issues that Cenk has with Biden, I think that he would be the last person to take issue with the fact, with the breadth of his accomplishments while he was in office, whether it was, the American Rescue Plan, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Gun Safety Bill, the Infrastructure Law, the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act. I think,
Here we go. He's just listing more stuff now. Democrats are so screwed.
There is the fact that he keeps doing what everybody says that he can't do, whether it's winning elections, whether it's presiding over a Democratic Party that is winning elections, or whether it's actually pushing his agenda forward or adding jobs, doing all of the things that Donald Trump said he would do, whether it's lowering healthcare costs, adding 15 million jobs, passing an infrastructure bill. He's doing the things that the other guy promised he would do, that energetic guy promised he would do and failed. And yet Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe from the campaign, is actually getting them done.
Okay.
So why would he step back?
Okay, but if he did, just before I go to Tomi.
Answer that?
If he did, well, hypothetically though, Brian, just give me a name of somebody who you would be pleased to see step into the breach if it came to it. If you resigned.
It's not going to matter. I'm not going to deal in like non-existent scenarios. Joe Biden is running. He is going to be the nominee. And so
I think you're going to have to consider it sooner or later. I want to bring Tomi in. I mean, Tomi, look, there's no doubt Joe Biden beat Donald Trump.
Damn, this is bad. I feel like Brian Tyler Cohen is getting absolutely cooked on this panel. He's getting roasted. Do you guys remember that part of the episode of The Office when Michael Scott cooked his foot on a Foreman grill? That's literally Brian Tyler Cohen right now. This man's getting cooked.
In 2020. Donald Trump doesn't want to admit it, but as I said to him to his face, he hasn't produced any evidence to me, which stacks up, which said he had that election stolen. He just lost. And he has, very bad midterms to Republicans and Trump. He had a very, Trump's record really electorally in the last 4 or 5 years has been awful. So, other than the 2016 fantastic win, is there not a little concern for you, particularly given all the criminal indictments, the fact he's now a convicted felon? I happen to think the Stormy Daniels case was preposterous and should never have happened, but he is a convicted felon. That is going to have an impact probably on some independents and some Republicans potentially. Are you not as worried as some are about Donald Trump's own candidacy here, and that maybe he ought to consider his position?
Well, listen, I never underestimate Democrats. One thing I will give Democrats is that they are very strategic and they know the voting process better than any political party in the world. They know how to get out the vote. It's something that I'm quite frankly jealous of, because you guys know how to register voters. You guys know how to get out those mail-in ballots. You know how to early vote. You know how to ballot harvest. You do a great job on the Democrat side of the process. So your messenger doesn't matter as much because your process is fantastic, and I hope that we emulate it on the Republican side. So I will give the Democrat Party that. But I believe the reason that we lost in the 2022 midterms that were supposed to be a red wave was really for one reason and one reason only, and that was Roe v. Wade, and that was the abortion issue, something that I've been warning Republicans about for many years now, and I will continue to sound that alarm. That is the thing that lost it in 2022, and if Republicans are not careful with their messaging, that is what will lose suburban women Biden that are right on the cusp between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in November.
I ain't gonna lie, she does have a point. She does have a point. I do think it's no, hold on. Hear us out. So, yes, Roe v. Wade got overturned, and a lot of those suburban soccer moms who tend to flip very easily started voting Democrat. They started voting blue. But also going beyond that, there were a lot of other issues that were going on at the same time, as well as the young voter turnout was also monumental. So I just think as a country, we are tending to lean a lot more left in general. And I think we had a lot of that young generation turnout. We had a lot of exit polls proving that as well. So the young generation really came out. There were also a lot of single issues in many different states. Like abortion was on the ballot for Michigan. Different states had very important state-related ballot issues, and that made people come out, especially in the younger generation. So I do think she has a point. I don't think she's really looking at the scope of things, but a lot of people end up turning out for issue-related voting. So what I mean by that, for example, if your state has abortion on the ballot or weed on the ballot or something regarding like mass incarceration on the ballot, you can have a much easier turnout for that election cycle for that one initiative, and then that person that ends up voting for that one initiative in favor of it ends up voting leaning Democrat on most of the other things on the ballot. So we did learn a lot of that, and that actually does work in the midterms. Now, if this year, if the states end up putting abortion on their ballot, for example, I know Florida is working on it. I believe Arizona is another state. If we put these single issue voting problems on the ballot, and we say, hey, if you vote for this, you get X, Y, and Z, and it's an issue, it's not a person, or you're not advocating for a politician, that tends to work a lot better. So I think she's right, but I don't think she's looking at the full scope of what actually happened, because there's a lot more that goes into it. Also, Gen Z, the younger vote, tends to lean very left, and we had a huge Gen Z voter turnout. So it's like a kernel of truth, but there's a lot more that goes into it, if that makes sense.
It will be the abortion issue. So that is something that I've been very, very honest about, and the Republican side need to get better at it. I think Donald Trump has done a good job of saying this is where it lies with the states. But Donald Trump is a candidate. I'm not worried about Donald Trump because Donald Trump is raising money. Donald Trump's base is stronger than ever. Joe Biden can't even get his base excited. You heard Cenk saying that he's not excited about Joe Biden. You'd be hard pressed to find a Republican that's not excited about Donald Trump. His base is still there. So, no, I'm not worried. I will say this, though. If Republicans don't get their process right.
I don't think Donald Trump's base is there the way it was before he got convicted of 34 felonies, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
It's still going to be a close election no matter what. And if they swap Joe out, which I think they're going to, it's going to be even more tricky. I'm very realistic about that.
Before I go to Cenk to respond, is there a name on the Democrat side, Tomi, that you would actually have some fear about?
For me, I'm very concerned about California Governor Gavin Newsom, and that's who I think the nominee is going to be. Not because I think Gavin Newsom is a great leader, quite the opposite, but he's young, he's a shiny new toy, he's charismatic, he's well-spoken, he's like a white Barack Obama. So yes, Gavin Newsom does give me cause for pause, and I've been sounding the alarm.
Here's the issue with Gavin Newsom and why he would never win a presidential campaign, in my opinion. Well, it depends on the optics, but I don't think he would win because a lot of the people who are swing voters in swing states look at Newsom as some sort of a liberal king. They think he's way too progressive. He's not centrist enough to actually flip certain states. So I actually don't agree with that at all. I think Newsom is a little too progressive for a lot of people. Also, yeah, I don't even know what the fuck a white Obama even means. I think that was a weird comment.
Don't underestimate Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I actually agree with that.
Can I say something real quick to Tomi? Piers, can I say something real quick to Tomi? I think in terms of what Tomi said about Donald Trump being, like, I guess, dealing with this issue correctly, the issue of abortion, Donald Trump, more than any other human being in the world, has come out and taken credit for the 3 Supreme Court justices that he installed on the court, that he appointed to the court, that overturned Roe. This idea that Donald Trump has become like a moderate force, like a moderating force as far as abortion goes, is a wholesale denial of reality. Furthermore, the Republican Party, since the 2022 midterms, has decided to attack contraception, has decided to just recently opt not to vote in favor of IVF. This idea that the Republican Party as a whole, not just Donald Trump, but the Republican Party as a whole, has become more moderate or careful on the issue of abortion, women's reproductive rights, is just not paying attention to what's happening.
Did she say that? Okay, not to take her side, but I thought she said that if the Republicans don't become more moderate and supportive of abortion rights, it's going to be an issue for them. I don't think she said that she thinks Republicans are becoming more moderate on it. Maybe I didn't listen properly. I don't know.
In reality right now, it's only gotten worse. And now we've seen stories of 12-year-old girls who've been raped in Mississippi, 10-year-old girls who were raped in Ohio who had to flee the state for abortion care, a woman in Texas whose fetus had a fatal genetic condition who had to flee that state. It is not getting better. It is only getting worse. This issue will continue to plague the Republican Party because they continue to be as extreme as they possibly can on women's reproductive rights.
Okay, let's go to Cenk. Cenk, first of all, your response to what they've just been saying.
Yeah. So first of all, to answer Brian's earlier question, by election day, I thought that Joe Biden would crush Donald Trump in 2020. He actually won by less than I thought he would because I was reading the polls, and I was right about the overall popular vote count. I was surprised at how close the swing states were. And that's because Joe Biden at that point had a 52% approval rating. And I base things not on my emotions, but on facts and numbers. Do you want to know what his approval rating is now? It's 37%. It's 15 points lower. There is no one who understands one thing about politics who doesn't think, oh, a guy who's 15 points lower than he was has just as good a chance of winning. Remember, he barely won the swing states last time by 44,000 votes. He has no chance of winning. No one in the 30s, an incumbent in American history, has ever won re-election. Ever. It's never been done. And we're to believe that the guy who could barely talk and speak is going to pull off the most miraculous comeback in American political history. Sorry, but that's just denying reality. And unlike apparently every other Democratic establishment person, I don't want to lose to Trump. But apparently they don't.
I don't even think Cenk is like your regular Democrat voter because he literally tried to run for president. I don't even. This whole panel is making me my head spin because I'm like, I don't even know if you're really a good representation of that crowd of people. But you're speaking on behalf of them. I don't even know what to say at this point.
I don't mind losing to him at all. You'd be mental to run a guy at 37% approval. Incumbency is an albatross around his neck, so is his age, etc. So if you don't want to beat Trump, fine. You raise your hand and say, I love authoritarian leadership. I bow in front of the Democratic establishment. I will never defy you. I bow to you. I bow to you. It doesn't matter if you roll out a mad king with no clothes. I'll say he has clothes, and I don't mind losing to Trump. So if you go to who should replace him, first of all, anyone. Give me any random Democratic governor that you pull out of a hat, and that person will have 10-point higher.
But who's the best? Who's the best
Joe
potential?
Biden, and will have a great chance at beating Donald Trump for the reason that Brian is talking about. Because the Republicans hate women who have freedom. They don't want women to have freedom. They want to snatch your body away and say that's the government's property. And they believe in giant big government and the jackbooted thugs of the government.
I used to find it entertaining when Cenk would get all animated like that. Now it just gives me the ick. I'm like, can you just make your fucking point without getting all animated and shit? Don't get me wrong. I think the whole presidential campaign thing really rubbed me wrong. Because, like, the point can be made. You're just turning people off. I don't even know, honestly. I don't even know.
Coming and snatching women's bodies and saying, you can't have contraception. You can't have an abortion. You got to do whatever the man says. So I'm never going to vote for a Republican. It's a sick party. But I also don't want
just
to
on that point,
lose to them like morons.
Cenk, just across the pond here, I would observe that on the Democrat progressive side, they think that it's perfectly okay to just completely destroy women's rights at the altar of limitless gender identity. To the extent we have biological males
Piers.
crushing women. Well, I know, I'm just saying. I'm just saying when I hear Democrats,
that affects.
listen,
no, Piers.
listen.
Let me explain.
No. Let me finish.
That affects 0.00001%. You guys are obsessed with beating up on trans people. It barely affects anyone in the country. It's a giant distraction. Meanwhile, women are 51% of this country, and you don't mind Republicans.
What the fuck do trans people have to do with anything? Also, Cenk is literally funding and allowing his co-host to be transphobic as fuck. So, like, why are you acting like you're some sort of a crusader for trans people when Anna Kasparian has literally been called out for being a transphobe for so freaking long? Ugh, this is so annoying.
Taking away their freedom completely and saying that their body is the property of the U.S. government?
I find it slightly weird when I hear people on the one hand ferociously wanting to defend women's rights, but on the other hand quite happy to see those rights traduced by things like allowing biological males to compete in sport or allowing biological males to be in female spaces, whatever it may be.
Piers,
I'm sorry, you may not think it's important.
No, you're being ridiculous.
I'm not being ridiculous. I'm not.
And I'll tell you why. Because, Piers, on trans women competing in professional sports, I actually agree with you. But you know who that affects? About 7 people in the country. To pretend that that's a real issue,
that's completely wrong.
Not a real issue.
No,
that's
Cenk,
a culture war issue
Cenk, it's
meant
not.
to divide and create hate.
We're seeing it in more and more.
And it's meant to cover up. It's meant to cover up Republican crimes as they snatch away women's bodies.
Yes, but Cenk,
and say,
you're missing a point.
You're going to have a rapist child.
You're
That's
missing
what
a point.
Republicans actually believe. And you go, oh, hey, look at that distraction. 7 people are involved in a sport they shouldn't be involved in. Wow, what a big deal.
Cenk, I agree with you about abortion. I'm pro-choice for women on abortion. I think I'm the only consistent person in this conversation because I defend women's rights across the board. I'm not picking and...
Why does Piers always do that? He's like, I'm the only consistent one on this panel. I was against the Afghanistan-Iraq war. I am for women's rights. I've always been for women's rights. It's like the self accolades have to constantly come out with this man. Every single fucking panel, I swear to God, does not miss a beat.
And choosy about what rights I'm prepared to defend and not defend.
Okay, whatever.
And if you think that, if you honestly think only 7 people are affected by the transport thing, and it's got nothing to do with trans people, I want them.
It's more than. Hey, are you saying it's in the thousands? Are you saying that there's thousands of trans women competing in professional sports?
No, but
are you saying it's hundreds?
No, but
are you talking about dozens or single digits?
It is
a microscopic issue
that you
are
it's not.
choosing to focus on.
Here's why you're wrong.
Like to push that bigotry.
Here's why you're wrong. Right across the board, from when little girls compete at school now, to high school, to college, to potentially professional sport. If you do not stop trans athletes competing against women, it will destroy women's sport. More and more sports are seeing it happening.
Get back to reality.
It is reality.
So Piers,
it's happening.
Who should replace him?
It's happening.
I don't care. I don't care. Piers,
well, you should care.
The funny thing is, I actually...
What the fuck does this have to do with anything? Like, are we talking about Joe Biden and a different candidate, or are we talking about trans sports now? I'm confused. How do we even get here?
I agree with you, but I don't care.
Okay.
It affects so little people. It's an obvious distraction. You would not be saying that. Trump?
Well, I agree.
How do we beat Trump?
Yeah, okay, we'll come to that.
Trump?
But just to be clear, it affects a lot more people than you think, that issue. And if you were a mother or a father of a young girl, very promising athlete, whose Olympic place is stolen by a trans athlete who has an unfair advantage, you would not feel the way you do.
Has literally happened to maybe 2 people on planet Earth.
Shouldn't be happening to anybody.
Maybe.
Right.
2.
Anyway,
out
let's
of
get
8
back
billion
to
people.
Is Gavin Newsom the right guy?
No. Give me a boring Democrat. So Gavin Newsom has issues in California. He's slick. He's one of the elites. For God's sake, Democratic Party, when are you going to realize that people hate the establishment? Why do you keep appointing and picking the most establishment candidates in the world? So I know you're never going to pick the guy who would easily win. If you put in Bernie Sanders right now, he'd win in a landslide. But I know, the Democrats hate that idea more than the Republicans do. Republicans, you don't have to worry about
Bernie
it.
Sanders
the Democrats
could not win a general
progressives. Okay, but give me Gretchen Whitmer, give me Josh Shapiro, give me Andy Bashir, give me Pritzker, give me any random, boring, bland Democrat, and they're going to beat the lunatic named Donald Trump, and they're going to beat a party who hates women's freedoms and wants to end women's freedoms in this country and has ended women's freedoms in this country. It's so easy to beat the Republicans and Trump. The only guy who can't beat him is a guy sitting at 37%. Why are we choosing to lose to Trump?
Well, Brian,
look,
let me ask Brian that question.
I know the answer, by the way. Joe Biden is why we're losing.
I had other topics I wanted to discuss, but I've actually really enjoyed this debate. It's fascinating, actually. It's a really interesting kind of existential debate for the parties here. I mean, Brian, what it comes back to for me is this precedent for two presidents on the Democrat side stepping aside. And there's clear precedent here that Biden could be number 3 if he can be persuaded to do it. As Cenk just said, it's almost like you've got a death wish, that you've got a guy in Trump, got nearly 100 criminal indictments against him. He's already been convicted on one felony. If you can't beat that guy with all the baggage Trump brings with him, then I don't know what it says about the Democrat Party. And all the polls say the biggest impediment to beating him is Joe Biden. Even 2/3 of Democrats think Biden's too old to run again.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, how much do you have to suck for you to lose against Trump is the real question. How much do you have to be just unentertaining, just bad at your job, just uncharismatic, unfulfilling to lose against someone like Trump? That's actually crazy.
Your own side. Why do you want to commit this act of self-harm?
Piers, you're speaking as if the election is over. I mean, it's still happening, and we are contending, to your exact point, it's not over. I mean, we're contending with somebody who is digging his own grave right now. I mean, you opened up before by talking about how Donald Trump is a convicted felon, how Republicans continue to wage this war against women's reproductive rights. I mean, this is Republicans, they're not presenting themselves well ahead of this election, and most people, by the way, in this country aren't even paying attention right now. When it comes into focus, when Americans start paying attention, when it's not just low information, when it's not just high information voters who are watching right now, the freaks like all of us.
What do you think is going to happen, Brian? What's going to happen on June the 20th?
Everybody knows who Biden and Trump are. Well, everybody knows who Biden and Trump are.
June the 20th.
The idea that they're going to magically turn it.
I come back to this. Brian,
oh my God, is that Donald Trump? Oh my God. No, I'm going to vote against
it. It's not that they don't know who Donald Trump
is. The point is, we're going to see on June the 27th, these two guys standing there. There'll be no Barack Obama to hold Joe Biden's hand and guide him to safety. He's going to be exposed on live national television for however long it is, an hour, 90 minutes, whatever the final time is, I'm not sure. But whatever it is, even 10 minutes at the moment of Biden exposed in that way is proving to be calamitous for him. He's going to get eaten alive by Trump. You know it, I know it, Tomi knows it, Cenk knows it. And to Cenk's point, you can hate Trump with a vengeance like Cenk does. But if you're just going to throw Biden to the wolf, then surely you then deserve all that comes your way, which will be a big election defeat.
The bigger story that's going to happen on June 27th is the fact that the vast majority of Americans, to your point, the most Americans are going to watch this debate, probably of any debate that we've ever had, is they are going to be reminded what a raving lunatic Donald Trump is. This is somebody who, purportedly in his right mind is claiming that World War II hasn't happened yet, in his right mind claiming that Barack Obama is still the president, in his right mind claiming that you need ID to buy bread, in his right mind claiming that the U.S., which is there to...
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen on this debate. I don't know if people are going to realize that Trump is bad and they're just going to get reminded on how bad Trump is. I don't know if it's just going to exasperate how, physically ill Joe Biden is. Maybe it's just going to turn people off from voting altogether, which is also going to be really bad. I don't know what the point of this debate is. I don't know who looked at this debate and was like, this is a good idea, let's go for it. Because on both sides of the aisle, it's just a terrible idea, in my opinion.
As an acronym for United States spells us, and that he was the first person to figure that out. In his right mind, claimed that Nikki Haley was in charge of the Capitol on January 6th. In his right mind, claimed that Viktor Orban was the leader of Turkey. This is... What are we talking about here?
Well, Brian, let me answer the question.
Donald Trump's energy.
Let me answer the question for you. Brian, if he's so diabolical, why is he ahead in the polls in most of the swing states?
I agree with
the polls right now are look, Piers, what's happening right now in the polls in June before the election is not indicative of what's going to happen. We all know that a lot can change in a few months. Look at what happened in the beginning of January 2020 to the beginning of February 2020. A lot can change in a few months.
All right.
People are going to be reminded of exactly who Donald Trump is,
It's never
why
happened.
they came together, why 81 million Americans came together in 2020 to make sure that he didn't take the presidency. And
Okay.
that was before he incited an insurrection on January 6th.
All right.
That was
Let me-
before 41 of his 44 cabinet officials and closest advisors opted not to endorse him in this upcoming election. Donald Trump hasn't gotten better. He's gotten worse. The Republican Party hasn't gotten better. It's gotten worse. We see this in election after election when
Okay.
people actually cast their ballots versus just the polls. When people are actually going to the polls and casting ballots, we constantly see a different story being told than the one that we hear from the media over and over and over on repeat prior to these elections actually happening.
All right. Final word to
Piers,
you,
can
Tomi.
I tell you who the number one person who's guilty of all this is?
Yes.
And the reason why we're in this mess, it's Dr. Jill Biden. So if you ask, hey, has anybody in the administration talked to Joe Biden about stepping down? Yes. Has Barack Obama gone and had lunch with him several times? And the reporting is that he likely asked him to step down. Yes. Has Axelrod and Carville been all over TV asking Biden to step down? And they're the top proxies for the Clintons and the Obamas. Yes. The one person who apparently wants to keep going is Jill Biden, the first lady. So
What do you even say to that? I honestly don't agree. I think that Joe Biden, albeit I don't think he's, I do think he's declining. I'm not going to deny that. But I do think he still has the autonomy to make his own decisions. And I do think that he is choosing to run again. Now, Joe Biden might be encouraging him to do so, but I'm just a little confused. Like, I don't think Joe Biden is like some sort of a puppet holding him up and telling him what to do and what not to do. I don't know. I just feel like he chooses to do, right? Like, I feel like he just chooses to stay there.
okay, so we're all stuck because Jill Biden would like a second term and she thinks that would be better for his legacy, her legacy. And so now we're all stuck because one person thinks, I don't care if he has dementia or whatever he has, I want to stay on to power. And that's a real problem in this country. I'm sorry. I agree with what Brian is saying about Trump. I agree that he's a madman. I agree, and that's why he should be easy to beat. But Brian, he's 15 points lower than he was in 2020.
Yeah.
You know it's never been done. He's 37%. It's never been done. This guy is not going to pull off a miraculous comeback, and we're all going to suffer for 4 long years because of the egos of Jill and Joe Biden.
Yeah, and when Cenk Uygur and Tomi Lahren agree about something, it's quite a rare occurrence. And you both totally, Tomi, agree about the state of Joe Biden. And I do think there's a slight denial creeping in with a lot of Democrats that they kind of know. They see the same stuff we all see. And to try and pretend we're not seeing a blue sky when it's blue, and to try and tell us, oh, no, it's not, it's green, is to deny the bleeding obvious right before our eyes. But Tomi, let's go forward 5 months, election day. How's this all going to end? I mean, do you think Biden will be the guy that ends up fighting the election, or do you agree with my sense?
No, Brian genuinely looks like he's about to cry. Like, he looks defeated. He looks defeated in this clip.
The Democrats need time to execute their swap out plan, which I've contended they're going to do for the last 2 years. I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that there will be a different Democrat nominee come election day. I think it's either going to happen at the convention or shortly thereafter. Joe Biden will finally be convinced that he must step down because he's simply not even able to stand at that point. And I think they're going to swap him out. It might be Whitmer. I still think it's going to be Gavin Newsom. But I think that if it is Joe Biden, Donald Trump runs away with this election. But I'm a realist. If it's not Joe Biden, I agree that it's going to be much more challenging in the election because the Democrats are so good at the process. So I think it's going to be more challenging if Joe isn't the nominee on the Democrat side. But I still think that Donald Trump, given everything we're seeing in our country, especially that wide open southern border that's literally killing Americans, I do believe Donald Trump's going to win either way, but it's much easier against Joe. So if you guys want to keep pretending he's A-OK, Brian, I'm right there with you. Let's go with that.
Finally, we'll reach a point of complete consensus. Thank you to all my panel. Brilliant debate. Thank you very much indeed.
Damn. Okay, final thoughts. That was definitely a nightmare blunt rotation. I was not wrong about that. I think Brian Tyler Cohen was really just spewing a bunch of talking points given out by the Biden administration. I don't think he was really doing much to sway people. I also think he's a little bit in denial because he's just not really acknowledging the flaws that Joe Biden has. And I think if you're extremist to the point where you can't acknowledge flaws that your side of the argument has, you're not really going to sway people who are not swayed to come towards your side. So I do think that's a bit of an issue. Cenk was kind of making sense, but then again, I don't really take him seriously either. Also, he's kind of transphobic. So, and Tomi is just Tomi. Overall, oh my God, I don't know. I feel like debating on whether someone is competent to do their job is just wrong in general. But when it comes to the president of the US, I just feel like you have to have that autonomy. Like, you have to know when to step down. And I think we all know that Joe Biden is just, he's getting old. He's getting old. And if you genuinely think he can be there and do the job for the next 4 years competently the way that he needs to, you're in denial. You are in denial. And Kamala Harris is, very unpopular. She would not win. Maybe if they prop someone up like Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, I think she would have a fair chance. But I don't know. I just think there's a lot of problems with this upcoming election. And we're just going to have to see how it goes. But anyways, thank you so much for watching my channel. My name is Ariana Jasmine. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, do everything you need to do to get this video going in the algorithm. And I will see you guys next time.